So my boys collect amiibos, and we were talking about building a display platform for it. There's a few tutorials online with similar type design, so this isn't anything unique. It works for us. We wanted something to accommodate close to 40 amiibos. This is a mock-up. This isn't even showing the final design. The final design will have, how many here? 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7. So the final will have 8 on the first row. And then if you see how we had this mock-up here, there's 1 less on this row because we want, as you view it close up, you can see in between each amiibo easier that way. We opted for 3/4 inch cabinet grade ply because that's what Dad had available. So we have some extra ply available. I do have dimensions rough now. As we go through the build, we'll update the dimensions, keep everything, and document it and post that on YouTube on how to build one of these yourself. So anyway, this is the design. It's going to be 5 tiers, and it will hold, with this design, 38, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, 38, good. So again, it's a mock-up. So here are the things you'll need. First of all, you'll need to decide what type of material you want to use, okay? In this case, 3/4 inch cabinet grade ply. There's all kinds of materials. We even thought about a bamboo cutting board at IKEA, right? Yeah. But that was only going to hold, I believe, 6 across and only 4 tiers based on buying 3 of those cutting boards at $7 each. So anyway, be creative with your idea. I would say at least 1/2 inch thick would be minimum. Now here's a material that I've worked with in the past. It's cutting board material. It's a plastic. It's called high density polypropylene. This would be awesome, but it's expensive. And the reason it would be awesome is it's machinable. Cuts like butter. You can router it. You can cut it easily. It's a really nice material. It's cutting board material. This is a black piece from a larger piece. I had a project. Great stuff. But again, just be creative. So let's run down through some bill of materials. What type of tools and supplies you're going to need for this project. I think before you start anything, see if you have a parent that has things like table saws and tools, an uncle, granddad, etc. First thing, if you're going to be using any power tools, eye protection, hearing protection, number 1. Number 2, you're going to want some measuring devices, of course. Carpenter square, T-square, machine squares. I like using these things, smaller rulers. A caliper, digital caliper will definitely help. Pencils, of course, for marking. Regular tape measures. You're going to need a device like this, a drill press with a special bit, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to want a chop saw for doing crosscuts, sanding tools. This is a beautiful sanding device. It's a sanding table, oscillating belt sanding table. And then finally, a table saw. No, I don't cut with the blade that high. I was just making sure it was square. Outfeed table. And larger carpenter square. Sanding block, sandpaper. And just for reference, this is the stock piece of 3/4 inch cabinet grade ply that I'll be using to make this design. In addition, I'm going to be using the router table here to do some round over cutting on one of the edges. At least I think so at this point in time. Now let's talk about one of the key tools that you'll need is this Forstner bit. Okay? And what a Forstner bit is a drill bit that doesn't have a tapered butt, or it doesn't have a tapered seat when it drills. So it's going to drill a flat hole. And this is exactly what it's doing for us right here. So if you notice, this guy fits just right inside there, and he's seated perfect. That's a Forstner bit, and you will need this for this project. The particular one that we bought, I believe it was $22 or $24, was this Roman carbide DC 1867, 1 15/16. Now that leaves about a 1/16 of an inch play on either side. Actually a little less than that. It's perfect because by the time you put your top coat on here with some wipe-on poly or whatever you decide to do, it's gonna be a perfect fit. It's a perfect fit. It's not tight. It's about maybe a 32nd of an inch on this side and a 32nd of an inch on that side. Next, I'd like to talk about a template that I made with Visio, and I will provide this template in the description details below the video. So this is a 2-page Visio, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I didn't cut the paper at all. I did overlap and I taped the paper. These are 2-inch round circles with the centers marked. Again, this bit is 1 15/16, so it's darn near 2 inches, and this works because it gives me a little bit of fudge factor when I start to build the distances between each tier here. Let's talk about the base. The base here, I know for a fact is going to be real close to 20 11/16. Okay, 20 11/16. The depth of the base for all 5 tiers, that's from this point to that point. Actually, that's only 4. No, that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To that point will be 13 6/16. Get a focus on there. Again, I like to keep things in 16ths. It's easier for me to add and subtract. That'll be the base. Here, I don't have this on the Visio, so you can translate this once you print and overlap. You're going to want to overlap these such that the distance between any center point on either sheet, this distance from here to here, tools like this caliper here come in real handy, right? You can get the mark the distance. Make sure that's the same to here. Do the top one too. Make sure it's square, and then tape, and you've got your template. Okay. So what you're going to do then is you're going to come over here to your scrap piece of wood. Okay. And even though this is a little wider, you can see there's a little bit on each end, which is good because I'm going to cross cut it. You're going to lay it on this on each side, equal distance. You're going to take an owl or some type of sharp object, and you're going to mark the center. Remove it. Use a pencil to mark it better, or even a Sharpie, because that material is going to be drilled out. So make your marks, do your drilling, and I might talk about it later, but real quick, you don't need to go too far down. It's preference. I wouldn't go any more than half the distance of the material, just to make sure that the integrity of the base is still intact. And then what you're going to do once that's done, you're going to then cut your next piece based on the total distance minus this distance is going to be this distance for the next platform, okay, for the next one. You're going to lay it on here, and then you're going to take a scrap piece and lay it here, so it builds it up to the same level as the second, so when you then lay this on top of that, it's flat across, and you're going to line it up again, and your second piece is going to be underneath here, and you're going to mark these holes, center of these holes for the second row, and you're just going to continue that process to build up 5 levels. Okay, the platform is cut, 2 dimensions, and next step really is to start marking the holes for the seat using the Forstner Bit, as I mentioned. Now, in order to not bother with this distance here on the page, you can tell that this first foot here on the base of the platform is a little larger. And I did that initially by design because I might incorporate an acrylic enclosure, but that's going to be optional and after the fact, after we're all done. So I don't want to try to cut this down any yet. I want to save that to last because this all matches from this leading edge all the way back. So now it's just a matter of laying the piece on. It's perfect from edge to edge, and then marking the holes and drilling with the Forstner Bit for the amiibo seat. Okay, I took this old tweaker screwdriver, used my grinder to make an awl. So it's basically just a sharp scribe, and line this up as perfect as you can get it along this edge here and along this side, and then just mash into the plywood with this sharp awl, and then it leaves an indentation mark, and then I used a Sharpie just for better visual, and now that will be the spot to use the Forstner bit to drill the seat for the amiibo. Okay, first row base is done. Just a tip on using the Forstner bit and plywood. You want to take a few scraps and do a few practice runs. The drill press has a stop guide, so it'll stop at a certain depth. Most of them all have that. You're going to need that to have a consistent depth. What I found is with the layers of the ply, there are certain sweet spots where you get a nice clean sweep. So I did that on a few scraps, found out where it was at the depth that I wanted, locked in the locking nuts, and kept that depth, and I got a nice clean sweep on all of them. So here's the base in the first row done. Here's the second layer. Okay, it's lined up even on the back side here. Okay, and we've got our template. Okay, now the way this is going to work is you need a scrap piece that fits perfect here. Okay, just like that, and then you're going to line up the edges again. Okay, just like that, line up the edges, and then you're going to use the awl, and you're going to poke and set your marks for the second layer. Okay, and we're going to continue doing that. Okay, marking the third layer. So again, what you do is you end up shoring up the first two layers so that you're all parallel, so you can use this template, and then you just line up the edges. And finish with the Forstner bit drilling. All levels are done. And here's 29 amiibos. Again, looking straight on, you really do see them fairly well. All right, this is the top panel, and this is forward, so this is the leading edge, this is the back here. What I want to do is I want to round over each of these leading edges of each platform with a 1/4 inch round over bit. So this is a router table. It's a table saw and it's got a router table built into it. This is a 1/4 inch round over bit bearing on the top, so you don't need any fence, but I want to round them over primarily just because the amiibos can have a little more room right around that sharp edge. So that's what we're going to do here. Stand by here. This is the side I want to do here, this top side here. So I'll lay it flat here. You always feed it into the rotation. So it's cutting this way, so you want to feed it this way into the rotation. Here we go. It's going to be loud. Rounded over edge, sand it, and top coat it. It should look nice. All right, here's a quick update. I have the first level base, the main base, here in front of me, and what I decided to do is cap the perimeter of this base with some hardwood stock. This is red oak, and I ripped this red oak so that it will have a perimeter. Okay. There's a couple of things for this. Number one, when you transport it and all, if you hit this edge, it will take more abuse than the plywood. Also, it'll be flush here, but at the bottom there will be close to 1/8 of an inch below the base. So when it's all done, this base will be sitting only on the perimeter, okay? And the entire center of this plywood base will not be touching the surface that you set the display on. Now that's better because you don't have a lot of surface area touching your desk or whatever. So that's better. And then I can put some feet at each corner, maybe another foot right here, just a felt foot to make sure that you don't scratch your surface. So again, this is red oak. I used 1x4 red oak stock. I ripped it this way, and you take that rip and you put it up against the 3/4 inch ply, and it's going to give you a approximate 1/8 footing around the perimeter. Okay. Lastly, I ripped a 1/16 inch off of this edge. So the original was 13 6/16, now it's 13 5/16. Continuation of the build, final sanding is complete. I used this Dremel bit. It's a greeny, round greeny bit. Quick disconnect, works real well. You can find it at your hardware store. Use it to clean up each of the holes. Of course, the holes aren't going to be perfectly smooth after the Forstner bit. I did a wipe-on poly coat on the bottom. I make my own poly, 50/50. Oil-based polyurethane and mineral spirits, 50/50. Works very well for wipe-on poly. You don't get your brush marks and all that. Especially with a project like this, you're going to be wiping on, and you're going to have drips, and you're going to have to wipe it up on the inside with your piece of old t-shirt. Next step is wait to mount these platforms and build a 1/4 inch cast acrylic enclosure, clear acrylic. Remember, this is a 1/4 inch relief here all the way around, so I want this acrylic enclosure to set in. I'm unsure if I'm actually going to do it at this point, but I'll talk about it. Doing the dimensions, I did some dimension calculations. You can do all 4 sides with a 24 by 36 inch piece of 1/4 inch cast acrylic. Make sure you get cast, research why. With the tallest amiibo here, we did a measurement from the bottom of the acrylic all the way up with 2 inches above that figurine. 9 inches high would be ideal. So 24 by 36 cast acrylic sheet will do all 4 sides, and then you're going to have to buy a 24 by 24 inch piece of cast 1/4 inch acrylic for the top, unless you have a local plastic supply shop that will charge you just for that exact size. Be careful not to sand too strong if you're using cabinet grade ply. You will sand through the top veneer piece, which is what you see in this corner here. It happens in corners more often. Forgot to mention why I want to wait before we affix the platforms to the base, and that is after we build the box, the acrylic box, the enclosure, if it doesn't fit for whatever reason, it's too tight of a dimension, we can put this back on the router table and open this up. There we go, just do the top coat with the wipe-on poly. You can use a t-shirt, right Evan? That sponge works real good for doing the inside of the holes, right? And just do the edges. Now this will protect it. Right, guys?
Yeah.
Right, Logan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Logan is our videographer for this session. Thank you, Logan.